any shouting, booing, clapping, applause from the audience. This is supposed to be a time where the speaker at the podium addresses the chairperson and presents their comments individually. Any kind of audience participation during that distracts from that one-on-one type of conversation. You're free to ask questions of the Planning Commission, but again, this is a time for the Planning Commission to gather information. The Planning Commission may or may not decide to answer the question. If it's something short and simple, they may choose to do so, or they may choose not to do so. That's not a reflection of disrespect for you. It's just the purpose of the hearing is to provide the commissioners with information, not vice versa, so that they can make an informed decision on this application. And that's pretty much all I have in terms of ground rules. We'll get started here. We'll try to move through the comments quickly. Just ask that you be respectful as the hearing moves forward.
Thank you.
We're ready to start.
Questions, comments from all right, let's get started.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we need a motion to take this off the table and reopen the public hearing.
Okay, I will make a motion that we remove this from the table. I support motion and support. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We now have an open public hearing.
Sure. First commenter, and forgive me, everyone, if I mispronounce any names. First commenter will be Thomas Joyner, and then second commenter who can come to either side of the aisle here will be Anthony Pettis. Once you come to the podium, I would ask that you please state your name and address.
I would like to ask, has the developer presented a plan to you showing what he intends to build and the density, where the wetlands will be, where the retention ponds will be, and the road layout? Thank you.
Next speaker is Anthony Pettis, followed by Linda Pettis.
Anthony Pettis, 16448 Van Wagner. So I went on the web and I looked up some of the developments of the P5 group, and there's a wide range of stuff there. And what I was looking at was specifically like what some of the other communities allowed as far as lot sizes and stuff like that. And I remember at the other meeting looking at the map and how the lakefront is zoned R1, but some of the other stuff was zoned R2, and then it expanded from 100 acres of R1 to 250 acres. So to me, it looks like this is trying to be expanded into a condensed area where it really, if we all wanted, we've all been there much longer than this future development. And it seems to me that the people that have been there should have the, how do I say this? We should get a bigger consideration having been there longer. If the people that wanted to, like if we bought a house there and we wanted to live in a more condensed area, we'd be living in a village. But we bought out there. Obviously, we know that things can change. But this seems like it's an intentional, we're gonna start with 100 acres, and the next meeting, it's gonna go to 250, and everything on the lake is R1, and then this is all R2. And this just seems like it's intentional overkill. Thank you.
Next speaker is Linda Pettit, followed by Bob Moonstruck.
Hello, my name is Linda Pettit. I'm at 16448 Van Wagner. I'd like to be noted in the meeting minutes that I will be speaking to 109B7, Article 8, which reads whether there are, let me try that again, whether there are changed conditions in the community that have occurred since the property was originally zoned, warranting the rezoning request. I find that the published master plan update from 2022 documents the change in future land use to R2 was made at the request of Eastbrook Homes. There was not enough community input or any notification mailed to the residents that their future land use was about to be changed in the 22 master plan update. Furthermore, prior to the master plan update that was made to accommodate Eastbrook Homes and their planned development, the properties in questions have been RR and AG for generations. Although conducting community meetings has been discussed and advised, no such meetings, informal gatherings, or other information was given to anyone in the community. Had the citizens been aware, the township would have seen public response at that time. They are seeing it now. It's in the form of packed meeting halls, dozens of public comments and emails per meeting, and the automatic replies from the township and staff as they struggle to answer all incoming inquiries about the properties involved. Thank you so much.
Next speaker is Bob Moonstruck, followed by Rob Little.
Hi, my name is Bob Grunstruck. I live at 16093 Terrace Road in Spring Lake. I'm also going to talk about the references to section B7, B9-7, and specifically subparagraphs 6 and 8. First comment is on paragraph 6 with regard to land suitability, impacts on the environment, and density. Land suitability, okay, 20% of the area is wetlands with a very high water table, minimum surface drainage. The Planning Commission advised the future impact of proposed mods on the area based on the source study commenced by the township. We know that the R2 housing density is going to be even more dense than R1 or RR or RG. Even though we don't see a site plan or a PUD yet, the fact is we're going to have less area for percolation of the groundwater into the soil because the roads and houses and driveways. The concern I have is, even though it was discussed place for glass and have a retention pool, the reality is there's a hard pack layer through the whole area of that township, and that's why the surface water doesn't drain. What happens is the water comes down to the hard pack, the clay, it works along that surface and bubbles up somewhere else. If they put a retention pond in there, all it's going to do is act as a basin for a reservoir to keep feeding that area, and it'll pop up there probably behind all the houses on the roll, is my guess is what's going to happen. So my comment is, I think you need an infrastructure study sanctioned to determine where and in what manner the surface groundwater can be directed from the area. Preferably to get it into the lake somehow. We live in the end of Terrace alone, and we've had a classic problem there for years. And the road is already broken down after 3 or 4 years because it's always saturated. Next thing is density. We live in Spring Lake. The reason is you did an electronic survey. People like the area, they like the low density. And the reality is this R2 designation doesn't fit with that in that area. The next thing I want to talk about is traffic volume. Traffic volume was studied by the township in different parts of the town. On Spring Lake Road, the last time it was done was 2017, 6 years ago. It was done in 11, 14, and 17, and not since. We now have Spring Ridge development. We now have Lazar's, at the Century Lazar's. We also have West Willow. I know living where we are, we see a lot higher density traffic on that road right now than when we first moved in.
That's fine.
Okay, I'll wrap up. The source study mentioned that on the P2 and P10 pumping area, you guys, down by the four roads, would give a total of 835 more potential homes that we fully develop. That's 1,700 cars. Okay, so what is that going to do for the traffic flow? And the very last thing I want to say is the township just passed an issue with regard to refuse removal, go from 15 trucks a week, have a single provider go down to 3. So we reduced 15 trucks on the road, but we eventually going to allow 16 or 1,700 more cars in there.
Thank you very much.
I'm actually here to support the project, and I just want to state my position from a real estate standpoint. We have a lack of inventory in Spring Lake Township. It's been ongoing for several years. Even with increased interest rates and stuff, we haven't really seen anything impact that. We still have a real need for housing. Projects like this, I think, are important. Continue to grow for people that want to move here, live here, raise families here. And I just asked the Planning Commission to take that housing market into consideration in making this important decision. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Next speaker is Lenny Kauka, followed by Rob Dirk.
Carrie.
Lenny Kaka, 18675 West Spring Road. I want to read you a quote from a letter you sent to the residents regarding trash removal. One waste hauler for the entire township means fewer heavy dangerous trucks on local roads, quote unquote. Waste haulers are once a week, 2 times down the road. But you want to haul in much heavier.
All you're doing is holding it.
3 to 4 days a week, over how many years? What is that going to do to our roads? That was your main reason for making us go to one trash hauler. And also, last meeting, we had to hear about the nesting of the cyclone birds in an area for the new Dollar General on M104. What about all the wildlife that you're going to totally destroy by developing this rich person's trailer park? That is all.
Followed by Michael Wade.
My name is Rob Burke, I'm 18274 Christina Court. Talked to quite a few people about this, and I've heard that there were multiple blueberry growers interested in the property. And it actually got to be a bidding war, went back and forth 3 times. But you take 225 homes at 120,000, that's $27 million that they have to work with. Water is a huge issue. I've paid for Low Park South, I've paid for the terrace drain. Now, there's the north one. This map, which includes all this new area. This is all this drains into the terrace. But water doesn't run uphill. And what's going to happen is everybody in this district is going to have to chip in to take a drain that's 2 miles away from their house. I suggested to the people that I had an engineer come out and he just shook his head with what they were trying to charge me for. Like I said, I played for the north, south, and terrace. Just to I'm a retired contractor, put the footings on the ground where they're now, you have to have your footings 36 inches below grade. So they're gonna need, for the 97 acres, 469,000 yards. That doesn't include building the front roads or the front yards and the driveways up. Just to get the footings filled, you're talking 33,000 14-yard dump trucks. Then you take the hard surfaces, roads, roofs, driveways, where's that water gonna go? The guy had a great comment about retention ponds. I'm not sure how well that's gonna work. Where do the retention ponds drain? Spring Lake High School, my daughter went to school there 14 years ago. I couldn't believe how many scholarships that were given out back then. At that time, she went to St. Mary's and her friends from Freeport went to school. It was a school of choice, Spring Lake High School. Now that has been taken away because we're, approaching full capacity. It's a great high school. My daughter just finished 14 years of higher education, and she's now a critical care pediatrics doctor. Pretty proud of that, and that high school had a lot to do with it. But,
Time.
thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Michael Wade, followed by Liza Suskowski.
Good evening, I'm Michael Wade, 16215 Terrace Road, and I'll be as brief as possible. The master plan cites a study that was done and the study talks about the need to increase capacity of the lift station number 10 at West Spring Lake Road in Ludlow. It also speaks to the development is totally built out. We need to get sanitary sewer on Ash Street, and the estimated cost of that for a half a mile of sewer is $1.5 million. So if we have to increase the capacity of the lift station, we have to add sanitary sewer. And the question is, who's going to pay for these? A second question I have is, the plan under consideration if approved will allow residential R2. How is that going to be enforced? I say that based on a review I did of Springwood subdivision, which is immediately south of Van Wayne Road. It's zoned R2. I went into the county GIS website, and it shows there are 6 home sites already built out of approximately 42, which is 14%, but do not meet the minimum requirement square footage of a 12,000 square foot per lot. I went through the last 7 years of the online zoning board of appeals agenda and found no indication of the builder ever brought this before the board so that the zoning would be allowed less than we require. And I believe that you folks
Come to the mic.
I would say most of those lots, I think it's 5 by 6, reach 1,200 feet less than required for R2 zoning.
Next speaker is Liza Suskowski, followed by Nicole Laura.
Hello, my name is Lisa Swikowski, 18628 180th Avenue, Spring Lake Township. Hello to our board, Mr. Curcio, and to our neighbors, and yes, you're all neighbors. I just have a few things I wanted to say, that from the last meeting that we had and the security that was there, you seemed to think that we were pitchfork wielding people going after a monster, but as you see, we just wanted to be heard, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear our to be heard. Unfortunately, well, I grew up in Michigan. That was a fortunate thing. But I lived in different places, and I've seen this happen over and over again, where representatives pretend to listen, but they truly don't. I want to see you truly represent us. I am very appreciative that you guys took a survey. Please pay attention to what we, the people, wanted. My main concerns, and you don't have to do any, obviously, not doing any rebuttals, but if you really want to know what I'm referencing, it's section 7 of the master plan with the action program. Talks about smart growth principles, maintaining tree-lined roads, minimizing road widening, enhancing development standards to improve screening and landscape along the public roads, requiring private streets in new developments unless it offers a clear benefit not to widen the roads. And then the other gentleman was talking about sewers. Okay, I want to know, is Eastbrook going to have some sort of special improvement district or tax we the people as they have done in the past for some citizens? I want to know if Eastbrook is going to build them, maintain them, or do we the people, citizens, end up paying for something that we're not going to use? It says here, section 3, repairing and wetland areas, again, retention ponds, great. Now, I've seen in the past where too many subdivisions, people come in from the big cities, wherever they're from, let's just say Chicago, and they spray a lot of weed killer, Roundup, whether or not you believe it or not. My brother-in-law worked for a city out of the state. He sprayed Roundup, and he has a blood cancer now, so does my sister. And their city said it was at fault. Anyway, they have to preserve section 5, rural areas, amend zoning ordinances to promote the preservation of rural areas, open space, open sense. I am so sorry. Water quality. I am so sorry that I went over it. But anyways, yeah, take these into consideration. Water quality, quality of life. Thank you. And if we, the people, are going to pay for somebody else's development.
Hello, my name is Nicole Larabelle. I live at 16814 Virginia Avenue. I'd like to thank everybody for reading the emails that I sent regarding the zoning of the parcel ending in 015. In the Eastbrook application, they noted this parcel as ag. This parcel's true zoning is rural residential. This has come to light since Lucas Hill admitted on May 2nd, 2023, that this parcel is in fact zoned rural residential. In all the staff reports written in support of the rezoning, this parcel was called ag. When Eastbrook made their application for why they needed to be rezoned, all of their responses to ordinance 109B7 A through I were based on the current zoning of the property, which they claimed was agriculture. I would request that they fill out a new application with the parcel ending in 015, which is rural residential, and I would have the applicant explain why rural residential properties need to be rezoned. Part of the ordinance that I will read now says whether the property is able to be used as zoned and whether the property can reasonably be used under the proposed zoning. The applicant has made no remarks onto why this property that's rural residential that they own can no longer be used as a rural residential lot. The two houses directly north of this lot are sitting on an acre of land with a home on each of them, and they fit the residential area perfectly. This 1 acre parcel that is zoned rural residential will be the new connecting road from West Spring Lake Road to the northern request. And all the people in the audience do not want to be rezoned with this. There's 153 acres of existing residential homes, 106 separate parcels that will lose their rights to rural residential when they sell their property. Now, if you say they can be grandfathered in and continue to be used, that's okay for them. But these homes have been in families for generations, and we would like to know that when we transfer property to another family member or whoever we decide is worthy of our farm or our rural residential property, that they will be able to continue to use it in the same way that for generations we've been able to do. Taking away the right to farm and to have rural residential buildings it's a reduction in square footage of rural residential buildings changing from RR to R2. The amounts are changed based on the acreage. There's a lot of rights that are going to be lost here. The rights to short-term rental will be lost from R2. So anybody that was doing short-term rental before, they will not have the opportunity to continue. It's not what we should be doing with Spring Lake Township, and there's many, many, many people here to support it, and I would very, very much advise that the Planning Commission require a new application for the RR property ending in 015 to prove why it meets the criteria for rezoning, which we believe it does not.
Next speaker is Christian Brown, followed by Jeff Curtis.
I'm Casey LaPray and I live on West Willow, and I'm asking that this be recorded into the meeting minutes of ordinance 109B7I. Whether the rezoning would support a rational and sequential development pattern, keeping potential development near existing development and infrastructure, avoiding leapfrog type development. To avoid spot zoning, Spring Lake Township staff amended the original P5 request to include an additional 106 parcels. 124 acres of privately owned rural residential homes and 29 acres of privately owned ag are now included. Proper public hearing notices of rezoning of these 106 parcels were not given to the public. Their parcel numbers and addresses were not published, nor was a map of the area included in the public hearing notice. Residents are extremely upset. Township staff included their rural residential and ag properties in with the developer's request, so the developer's request could satisfy the requirement of ordinance 109B7I. I just ask that you, again, listen to your community, listen to your voters, listen to your neighbors. We don't want this. Thank you.
Followed by Michael Johnson.
Hi, Jeff Ferguson, 18629 West Spring Lake Road. Much of what I was going to say has been said better by others, so I'm going to save you a lot. I am in opposition to this. I'm in opposition to rezoning our property, the blueberry field we live on, and the whole 250 acres. I don't see a reason for it. I don't understand rezoning agricultural land. It's productive and useful for food, and I think it's actually the charm of the area. I don't believe we want to go down that road, and it doesn't make any sense to me, so I don't want to talk about it. But something occurred to me a couple months ago. Up until 2 months ago, I hadn't come to a planning commission meeting in about a decade. I had no reason to. I got my information from media, from meeting minutes, from agendas, and I was content and happy. Same for the township meetings. I wasn't going to them anymore. I didn't need to. And somehow we turned the corner that we went from a barber school or a populated barber school, now this auditorium with a lot of people that are like-minded and unhappy. I hope we haven't turned the wrong corner. Please take that into consideration.
Next speaker is Michael Johnson, followed by Carrie Uso.
Hi. Good evening. My name is Michael Johnson. I'm at 16162 Coventry Lane here in Spring Lake Township. I just want to comment on the rezoning. I want to, my wife and I had sent you guys an email, but I just want to recap a few of the key points, which was that, this rezoning request, as was referenced by Nicole and others, a number of acres that really, weren't part of what P5 was looking to rezone, but was added in, the leapfrog approach or comment about that. But those people weren't notified, as Nicole and others said. I don't think I want to live in a place where you guys would do something like that. I wouldn't want my property rezoned without my involvement, my agreement, that just doesn't make sense. No impact studies. Bob was referencing this, others as well, but there's nothing that's been done yet. And I know that there's a process. I know that they need to give you a document that says what's supposed to happen. But I will tell you, in the business world, if we were going to do some big project, we studied well before all the plans were done to make sure that we have the capacity, we have the capability to deal with it. None of that's been done. Bob referenced the streets, we talked about water drainage, none of that. I don't understand how you couldn't have at least done a preliminary assessment to make sure that that this can be done. There's too many issues. People already have problems with water and other things. How can you step forward, approve it, and then say, well, wait, they get a document that says how many homes in what area? It doesn't make any sense. Not for something this big, in this area. And in particular, the water, and they mentioned water quality too. The water, if we haven't planned it right, it's going to end up in Spring Lake. That's already has problems. So I'm just asking you guys, I would say you need to reject this proposal from P5 and really think it over.
Yes.
Thank you.
Followed by Eileen Grunstrom.
Hi, good evening. I'm Carrie Udy of 16192 Old Orchard Drive, Spring Lake, Michigan. I am here in opposition of the new rezoning and the Article 1, Section 109, B7, and I'm going to be referencing Section D in case you're following along. The question was whether the rezoning is consistent with the goals, policies, and future land use map of the Spring Lake Township Master Plan. The Master Plan is a suggestion for future zoning. It is a living document that is required to be amended with public input. With no current public input or community-wide notification, 2022 Spring Lake Township Master Plan was amended at the request of Eastbrook Homes for the purpose of making the rezoning the 6 parcels in the current request easier. These changes were made without proper public input to the master plan. Changing the master plan's future zoning to R2 was a condition of the purchase agreement for the 7-acre parcel sale for the Pool family to Eastbrook LLC P5. The sale did not close until after the master plan was changed. Public tax dollars were used in the sewer study Lucas Hill used to change the master plan future land use zoning to R2. Residents were not informed their tax dollars were going to be used in the sewer study to help the developer's case for rezoning. Due to that, we have set up a petition with this P5's request cannot be approved for rezoning without the neighboring 106 parcels owned by residents. Residents of these 106 parcels are not willing to give up their present zoning of AG and RR and changing them to R2. With R2, property owners lose their rights to rent their homes and short-term rentals that was mentioned earlier, buildings, and farmlands. Residents are refusing to lose their property rights to amend a request written by Spring Lake Township staff to strengthen the developer's original request for rezoning. Residents bought and paid for the current zones when they bought their homes, as it's been previously mentioned. We understand that we have residents who have signed the petition and would like to bring to your attention at this time, we have about 420 signatures and people are still signing. So hopefully you'll take a listen to what people are saying. And with that information being said, also from the time I did the garbage petition to the time now, I've heard about 5 folks who moved here just recently from other communities that are now leaving and looking to put their homes for sale. I know 2 homes now currently for sale. They're not happy with what's going on here. So I'm hoping that you will listen to what the residents are saying and listen to who voted you in or how you've come into this particular position. Also, as folks mentioned, with the understream waters that are going through and how it is moving along, I do know several homes in a certain neighborhood who are still flooding, and these homes have been there 30 and 40 years. With this new change, how is that going to affect these current homes that are still flooding because of the improper zoning that was provided? So I hope you take that into consideration and refuse this and re-ask for an application. Have a nice evening.
My name is Eileen Grunstrom. I live at 1693 Terrace Road in Spring Lake Township. I have a question for the commission, maybe rhetorical, maybe not. Is this a done deal? Are we wasting our time reviewing this, coming to this meeting? Are we giving up a outside when you have already made a decision on this? My question also is, who do you represent? Do you represent Eastbrook or do you represent the people standing behind you?
Yeah!
We live in Spring Lake. We moved from Muskegon to Spring Lake Township, because we like the developments, we like the area, we like that it wasn't overcrowded. That's the reason we live in Spring Lake. That's the reason we hope our children, our daughter will move back here when she's in our golden years. I would also like to make a comment. I've heard from people who don't live in this area, that if we don't like what's going on, we can just buy the property and do what we want with it. No, then why are you putting input in something that doesn't involve you? I want to know, does anyone on this board, will any of you want to live in the development that you want to put in? Thank you.
To the chair. Would a split comment? And then she'd like to have a specific person talk. We can do that for purposes of one.
I'm reading these comments tonight on behalf of 33 households in the West Willow neighborhood, signed on the comments on the sheets I passed out. As the last remaining agricultural land in Spring Lake Township, we do not support rezoning the Pool Blueberry farmland to allow for another medium-density residential development. Part of the draw of our area is the laid-back nature of being near these agricultural lands, which is particularly unique as in being blueberry capital of the world. Once this agricultural land is gone, we will never get it back, forever changing Spring Lake Township. We understand that Eastbrook Homes has already purchased this land. Our hope is that the decision makers are holding an honest public hearing tonight to consider this request, and that no backdoor deals have already been made with Eastbrook purchasing this property before the rezoning request. Our comments will reflect section 109 in our zoning ordinance and its subsections. Subsection 7B asks for demonstration as to whether the property is reasonably able to be used as zoned and whether the property can be reasonably used under the proposed zoning. It has been confirmed that area blueberry farmers expressed interest and bid on purchasing the farm to continue farming, and there was a bidding war. At that time, Eastbrook purchased the property under our current zoning. However, such a bidding war demonstrates that this property could indeed remain agricultural. Subsection 7C asks if there are other areas of the community better suited and planned for the proposed development. We believe there are, though to be clear, this is not support for rezoning those areas. However, we have 4 areas identified in these comments that are not agricultural lands. For the sake of time, I will not read off the exact locations of 4 parcels and why they are better suited. Rather, they are listed in the comments for your reference. Subsection 7D seeks exploration of whether the rezoning is consistent with the goals, policy, and future land use of the Spring Lake Township Master Plan. We purport this rezoning request does not meet this criteria. Relevant study findings in the township's master land use plan can be found on page 22, where it is reported, preserving agricultural and open space is one of the highest priorities for township residents. Additionally, on page 23, study findings identified that it also appears that residents do not favor high-density land uses. These study findings appropriately appear to be reflected in the updated master land use plan and maps. Therefore, such a rezoning to medium-density development is not consistent with the goals, policies, and future land use map of the Spring Lake Township Master Plan.
The next speaker is going to continue these comments. You may come to the podium and state your name and address. So this will be followed by Ms. Bellinger.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Brault, and I'm 16322 West Willow. And along with Megan, reading these
behalf of the 33 households in West Willow.
It's the paper, but I'm just gonna reference
I'll
you.
start with subsection 7E, which seeks to explore whether the rezoning is compatible with the site's physical, geological, hydrological, and other environmental features given uses permitted in the proposed zoning district. Flooding is a major concern in our area, as we have mentioned here tonight. And enclosed in the comments, there are recent pictures of backyards and community areas within our neighborhood that are constantly flooding. To provide examples, even though we haven't had any major rain this spring. Particularly at the photo of our bike path where we try to take our kids that were being flooding days and days after a rainstorm. An additional 200 plus homes in the area and all the impervious surfaces that go along with this will only exacerbate these problems, in addition to adding further runoff that pollutes Spring Lake itself, which again many have mentioned. Section 7H asks to explore whether there is a capacity of the street system to safely and efficiently accommodate the expected traffic generated by uses permitted in the requested zoning district. Accidents in our area are on the rise, according to police reports. In 2022, there were 271 crashes in Spring Lake Township, including 2 fatal crashes and 42 injury crashes. We strongly object to adding another 200 plus homes, increasing traffic greatly along surrounding roads that are becoming increasingly dangerous in what is otherwise a quiet community. Thank you for considering our request to leave the current zoning and work to protect these unique blueberry fields that are part of really what makes Spring Lake Township so special for us.
Followed by Bob Shea.
Ramona Opperman, 16205 Highland Drive. I am responding to ordinance 109B, section H, on the petition you all have. Section H states whether there is capacity of the street system to safely and efficiently accommodate the expected traffic generated by uses permitted in the requested zoning district. So, the response here is there is no evidence or significant traffic study data of the traffic quantity, speeds, etc. on West Spring Lake Road. Although there is some data relative to traffic on Van Wagner Road, the majority of traffic on Hickory Road will utilize West Spring Lake Road. Currently, the road is highway traffic, and many young kids have been crossing the road to access the bike path with cars speeding over the allotted 45 miles per hour limit. Such data is critical for making proper decisions relative to increases in population associated with housing density. Thus, a detailed study of West Spring Lake Road traffic is needed. So really that should be done like before maybe they are approved to change the zone. Spring Lake Township's master plan names West Spring Lake Road as a collector road. Spring Lake Township staff and East Proponents have presented no traffic studies to show area roads can safely support the changes to R2. Rezoning the land would allow 2 separate development roads to connect. More study is needed to show the traffic impacts of entrances on West Spring Lake Road, Hickory, and Van Wagner that a change to R2 will allow. According to the Ottawa County Commission, a 10-year percentage change in traffic use on the corner of 168 and Van Wagner is up 28%. Any zoning change to R2 will only increase this already large number. And I ask, like many others, that you listen to the people. Thank you.
Followed by Thomas Feldman.
I'm Bob Shea, still at 18555 Kenny Drive. I'll begin to talk about the rights of property owners and to support the rights of property owners. So for those of you who know a little of my history, I served 2 terms on the township board, driven in part because of a one-night stand done by some very former boards in which the Woodland Ridge development was rezoned and then a public hearing and a site plan was all approved at the same night. That's not the case here. What we've got here is a master plan that was reviewed and revised over 2 years period of time. There are obviously a number of people, like I was 20 years ago, who weren't paying attention to what was going on. I know that during the master plan review, there were neighborhoods in the northeast part of the township. There were some property owners on the west side. There were the polls. There were others who all gave you input. There were public hearings. I was part of some of those. There were reviews with the neighboring municipalities, with the schools. So I appreciate the 2 years' work that went into the master plan review and revision that was not just around this property. We do have a need for more housing. I have a lot of coworkers that I work with who are looking for housing, some of them specifically in Spring Lake Township. They can't find anything. So we have a need for more. There are the schools, some of them, like Grand Haven, and in fact, some Spring Lake school district as well, are advertising for kids to enroll. Enrollments are going down. So I don't think, and I know they had input in the master plan, I don't think there's an issue on the school capacity either. So there was some discussion about whether this is a logical place for R2, the sequential development. R2 goes next to R1. This would be a logical transition from lake to R1 to R2, eventually working your way over to the highway. So that makes sense to me. This is not a site plan review. I've heard some discussion about lot sizes. This would be developed obviously as a planned unit development as the zoning requires. So you would have all sorts of adjustments in lot sizes in order to get more open space. So a lot of things still need to get done. The developer obviously would have to pay for a lot of studies before any site plan was done, any drainage, any water runoff, everything else. So in the meanwhile, I would encourage all of the people in ag to go ahead and get their piece and their other lots.
Next speaker is Thomas Feldman, followed by Christina Ellis.
Gary.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Feldman. I'm 18049 Lowell Road, Spring Lake, Michigan. I'm an old retired engineer. And I've talked to the board in the past. And my concern here is blueberry fields. You look at the runoff, there's not much runoff there. That's about less than a few. From an engineering perspective, less than a 10% coefficient. But when we go and we put in all these buildings and roads, we're probably, with the density that we're talking about, you're in an 80 or 90% coefficient. You're always water, and you've got hard pan, and it runs, it's going to run off. But when it leaves the property, we had an issue at Lowell Park where they wanted to redo a section. You remember that. And the drain commissioner, which really doesn't take any direction from the townships, came in, and part of that, he said, well, we're going to put a new drain in to take care of this area. It was $160,000, and my portion, I think, was $1,800, $2,000. We had 40 people in that neighborhood that paid between $1,000 and $4,000 to have this new little drain for about 8 to 10 acres. Now we're talking hundreds of acres, and we've got this hard pan and rest. It's going to be a problem. You're going to be talking, millions of dollars in structures to take care of this. The other thing that you have when you have these homes, being here for 38 years, for the first 20 years, you're always having problems with low voltage and water bans and different things that came up. When you put all these homes in here, you're in a utility line, you're going to have to put in a new primary coming in. Four power lines and new lines and brought up the voltage so that we didn't have problems because of the new development. They're going to have to bring in 3 to 6 megawatts of power to run this place. And that's 10% of the BOP that's out. So I'm saying that it's not all the time you're going to need it, but you have to have people come in, electric cars, and all this other stuff. So you have that, you have water, you spend a lot of money
bringing it up. This stuff, the same little, the sewers. You had 450 homes at the end of the day. The sewer and the water system is gonna need to be upgraded around it. So that's my concern, is that from my perspective, I pay a lot of money, at least a lot of money, but all you are gonna be paying for the upgrades in order for them to have the services they need. And it's not a little chunk of change, we're talking billions of dollars.
Next, we will continue followed by Larry Quinn.
My name is Christina Ellis. I live at 18270 Christina Court in Spring Lake. I'm responding also to the ordinance 109B7 and F. I'm responding for Dr. Jennifer Jones, who is a mineralogist and a certified watershed manager. She wrote you a extensive report about Spring Lake. It was dropped off at your offices on Monday. I hope you had a chance to take a look at it. It's rather long, so I'm not going to read it here today. But the main point that she asked me to relay to you was that she feels that the land that's being considered for rezoning is unsuitable for building, given wetland and soil and drainage issues. I would respectfully ask you to take a look at that report. It reflects directly on all the hard surfaces and runoff water that is going to go directly into Spring Lake. We already have a very, I don't want to say polluted lake, but we have a very questionable lake that already has several contaminants that are above the EPA suggested levels. And the number of homes with the runoff from the hard surfaces, I'm not talking about the water evaporating, it's the water that is not able to evaporate or absorb, is going to go into the aquifers and what will end up into Spring Lake. That report's available to you on paper, and it's also available online. And I also wanted to respond to the fact that I think Nick mentioned the fact that the survey was asking the citizens what it was that they considered the most important priorities: green space, open police department. The very bottom is high density development. I don't know how it got switched. That's what's happening. Is it easy for homes? I don't know. Could I ask to have a whole 250 acres rezoned just because I felt like it? No, I don't think so. Why is this? I think there's plenty of homes available. They might not be right in Spring Lake Township, but there are hundreds of homes available in these developments that are still empty. They can't sell them. They can't fill them. I see no need for this, and I see absolutely no need for it right here in the worst possible place they could build it. And I respectfully ask you to please reject this rezoning, and please listen to what your friends and neighbors and residents are telling you, that this is not necessary, and it's not needed, and it's really, we had to do it, we had it right now. Thank you very much.
The next speaker in the queue indicated she no longer wishes to speak, so I'm going to call two speakers up to the podium. First is Ms. Ziegler of Christina Court. The second is Martha Adamczyk. I apologize if I mispronounced that.
I'm also here to talk about ordinance 109B7, speaking of C, E, and G. I'll be brief because it's been repeated quite a few times here already. Whether there is other areas of the community that are better suited for the planned proposed zoning, like Hathaway Lakes, we have identified at least 4 different places that we think are more suitable for the master plan, and are suggesting that these be considered for zoning, just that they are more suitable. E is that whether the rezone is compatible with the site's physical, geological, hydrological, and other environmental features and uses permitted in the proposed zoning district. The citizens' responses that both fields are on wetlands
Any construction on impervious surfaces will create substantial runoff that cannot be contained into stormwater ponds. The runoff will enter the local ditches, possibly flooding the roads, and will certainly enter Spring Lake that will further degrade the lake that we've already discussed. Will ultimately reduce lakefront property values. In addition, there are several view of artificial fill will be incompatible with the natural land contours and create accelerated runoff impacts. And finally, G, whether there is a capacity of township infrastructures. The citizens' response is that there has not been any data related to adequate Spring Lake Township infrastructures that has been shared with the public. Each aspect of adequate infrastructure should be presented along with amenities and features that meet requirements for preserving the health, safety, and welfare of the township and its residents. A detailed infrastructure should be needed. Aside from the ordinance, I'd like to note that Halfway Lakes has several lots available to be built on. The Sanctuary has 9 vacant lots. Spring Ridge has 7. Spring Lake Country Club 43. Arcadia 18. And the list does go on. Many of these subdivisions are listed with homes by quality builders, and they still aren't selling. It's hard to think that housing is sorely needed with empty lots sitting everywhere. Thank you.
Speaker may come to the podium, and followed by Elizabeth Roth.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Martha Adamczyk. I live at 16555 Van Wagner Road. I'm right next to the blueberry fields. I have almost 10 acres there. My concern is that I had understood that the renters were the owners of the blueberry fields, and now I understand these Brook Homes has come in and purchased the property. And that came as a surprise to me. I've had some issues over the course of years. I've been there since 1976, and I've watched the development across the street from me, the Jim Tebby Homes, and that seemed to have gone good. I was very thankful for that. But I have had issues with water drainage, as other people have, with 10 acres and directly coming off of the blueberry fields. The water comes right across my property in a creek and in a front culvert. I've been disregarded when it came to the Board of Light and Power cutting down a whole row of trees right in front of my property, right along Van Wagner Road, not even asked if that was okay. They just took down a whole row of trees and said that they needed them down because they were going to interfere with the lines. Well, they didn't take my neighbor's trees down, but they took down a whole row of my trees. I've planted beautiful trees. I've tried to take care of the property for the animals. I have many deer coming across my property all the time. I have owls. I have eagles. I have I've watched the turkeys teach their babies how to fly into trees. I've watched wonderful things going on in this property, and I've taken good care of it, only to see that I'm disregarded when it comes to the care of it. And just going along with the show, I should just have my zoning go away. Well, that's silly, because it's important for the community to have the animals taken care of, to have the trees taken care of. I've got lots of trees. I've got a beautiful property, and I take good care of it. But I've also got to be aware of the water retention issues and the drainage, and I don't like my trees taken down unnecessarily.
Here, here.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Elizabeth, and in case I mispronounced that. Oh, no, this is you, okay. Good, thank you. And our final speaker on this on the cards is Molly Rasky.
Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen of the board,
I would like to thank you very much for reconvening a second time, for holding this in a larger venue, because we wouldn't have fit in barber school again. I'd like to ask all of you if you have had this vocal, or quite frankly, this large a township group that has been so vehemently opposed to a proposal on your docket. Quite frankly, I mean, when you look at this group of people, have you had such a group that has been so opposed? You have had people come up to you and say things that they are very well versed this evening. They came prepared to speak to all of you. We have all taken a lot of time. We have all done our homework. This means a lot to all of us. I'd like you to reflect as a group on these questions in particular of every single person that has come to speak to you. If you table this again, we will come back a month from now. We will come back 2 months from now. We'll come back 3 months from now. Of course, development is going to continue to happen. However, the fact that you as a group have decided that sweeping change to an R2 is the right move in a township where you have taken polls prior that contradict this is absolutely disingenuous and completely self-serving to a company that doesn't even have ties to this community. In my opinion, an RR designation is an easier thing to stomach because many of the pieces of the property that surround this are an RR. I asked the last time that I stood in front of you if you had reviewed any of the assessed property values that surrounded this property. I gave you a handout that showed you that, and I am not sure if you took the time to look into that at all. It was something that I handed you as a board. I do hope that you have at least considered these property owners that surround this property and every single person that has taken the time. This is the second time, but we all came back. We wanted to make sure that you heard our words and that they were very concise. And that's what we requested from us. Thank you very much.
We've now gotten through the end of all the cards. Is there anyone in the audience who has not spoken who would like to speak? If so, please raise your hand and we can go in real order. I think I only see one. If you could come down to the podium. Looks like we only have a few. If you want, you can all come one to the podium and two to the aisles.
Hi, my name is Susan Rothshafer. I live at 16121 Old Orchard Drive. This is just, I guess, some comments and questions because I don't really understand how this whole process works. I've lived in Spring Lake now for 2.5 years, and I did move here, of course, for the culture and the environment. I did live in a neighborhood that was quite a large neighborhood. They were larger homes with larger lots, but I've seen a lot of these developments, and they are kept in there. What I don't understand is that Mick McGraw, when he was up here last month, unless I misunderstood what he said that he has purchased 97 of the 250 acres. But I understand that does, and I don't know if this is correct. Is he purchasing the remaining? And he also made the comment saying, I don't know what I'm going to say, throwing you under the bus or anything, but he said something to the effect, I don't know the exact wording, but they would not have purchased that property if they weren't already assured of this RR2 zone. So
Yay!
I'm very confused what you meant by that. And I don't understand all the zoning of the agriculture, RR, R1, R2. But why are we jumping, I guess, from an RR to an R2 even? Is there not an R1 in between that would make it a smaller density or what? So I guess those are just my comments, why I mentioned that and what goes on behind closed doors that we don't know about.
Thank you.
Next speaker will come to the podium.
My name is Alice Whitney and I live on 17929 Spring Oak Drive. I have only just moved here and I moved to Spring Oak. I chose this house over a house in Holland because of this area and specifically because of those blueberry fields. So I feel really, really disappointed that my realtor couldn't tell me what was going on because she didn't know what was going on, because it would appear nobody knew what was going on, and that doesn't feel okay to me. Like the ladies just said, I don't know about the rezoning, I don't know about the process, but I do know that I'm really disappointed and I feel really quite cross about this. In addition, taking out the emotion, I can't get a dental appointment, I can't get a doctor's appointment because they're over capacity. I moved in on the 1st of March. I can't get to see my primary care doctor until the end of August. So somebody needs to think about these things because that doesn't feel okay. And I just want to register that because I feel really cross.
Good evening, Rob Henry, 18043 Lowell. And it's good to see lots of my neighbors back here from the area. Apologies for the lateness, and I'm trying to repeat what everybody else has been saying. But quickly, a couple things. Last time I spoke on the board was when the Spring Ridge development was going in, and I had a nice sit down with Lucas Hill and looked through all the developments. And my big concern back then was the number of easements. Egresses going out, and that changed, which was awesome. But the other question we had was on the number of sorties. And Lucas and I don't remember, Lucas remembers sitting down with that, but we came up with, looking at the houses and the number of sorties, trips back and forth, one-way trips out, was going to be about 500. And I sat right here, we were actually over at this other school, of course, and I said that 500, and that seemed like an awful lot. And I was interrupted by the builder, and they said it would be closer to 5,000. How many, and I missed the last meeting, my apologies again, work at night, did some teaching. 250 houses? That would be, what? 25,000 sorties then in the area? We gotta have some work on the roads for that one. Also, I had to come up and talk about the school sizes. I've heard a couple of things mentioned about plenty of room in the high school, plenty of room in the schools. Spring Lake High School was built 20 years ago. Capacity was 650, expectations for it. It's above 850 now. The new bond issue said, hey, we're going to put 4 new schoolrooms in there. That'll bring capacity down to most of the core classes to 26, 27, maybe 28. Right now they're about 32. What's another 250 houses with white picket fence, mom, dad, and 2 kids? 2 kids times 250, 500. What's that going to do to the overcrowding already happening in Spring Lake schools? Thank you.
My name is Mark Schroeder. I live at 18158 Lowell. My business happens to be out in Utica, and I'm on the Corridor Improvement Authority, so I have a little experience with halfway lakes, these homes out there, and I just want to make people aware of some of the issues that we've run into. Even though Halfway Lakes, for example, built out the infrastructure, also put in the sewer system originally, Crockery Township has been on the hook to maintain and finance all those. The sewer system almost took Crockery under, and we couldn't maintain the existing sewer system. We had to eventually hook up the Spring Lake Grand Haven system, which is going to need some improvement and expansion in the future, both in Spring Lake and the connection. The roads in Hathaway Lake are county roads, and those roads are not going to be resurfaced by the county. They flat out stated that they will not resurface those roads. They will fill potholes only. The township is going to be on the hook for those roads. And at this point, even though they're only, what, 2/3 built out, the roads are shot primarily because of the construction traffic. So that's going to be a big issue in the Proctor Township. So even if Spring or Eastbrook Homes is paying up front for this infrastructure, we have to realize that the citizens of Spring Lake Township are going to have to maintain that. And of course, all the ancillary roads, West Spring Lake Road, the schools, everything that's associated with that. So I just wanted to share that information, and I'd implore you to represent the people and their wishes. Thank you very much.
If I may conclude the public comment period. Mr. Chairman. Well, thank you. Is my mic on? Yes. Okay. Would you like a motion for
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, please. I just want to make sure the commission understands that we've had, over the course of the last 2 months, we've had an amazing amount of input and letters that have come in from the community. And so all of those have been forwarded to you via email, so you have a chance to look at those. There were especially a lot last month, not quite as many this month, but the overwhelmingly against the rezoning, which is summary for a variety of reasons, all of which we heard tonight. So what I plan to do with all of those letters is combine them into one PDF and put those on our website on the planning page, so you have an opportunity to access those if you like, and so does the public. And so that'll be available to everyone. So the other, as far as like I think that's it. Actually, go into the closing public hearing at this point.
Okay, so I believe we have a motion. I will make that motion, yeah.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and support. All those in favor of closing public hearings? Aye. Aye. Opposed? We have closed public hearing. I just want to express gratitude to the people that came. I know this is very emotional for everyone. Castle, so we get that. We heard a tremendous amount of passion, but he did a fantastic job of putting that into context of the ordinance and how we have to make decisions. So that's great. So I believe we have a community here that's represented well. You should be proud of yourselves. I know that I'm extremely proud of how you present yourselves. So thank you. Very grateful. So, tremendous amount of information was taken in the last couple of months. I pride what we've done to this point with the due diligence that we put in. I don't want to cut that short. I would like to ask you to come back next month where we won't have a public hearing, but we will be going through every single item. We'll have all of the information summarized for us so that we have a chance to digest it. We have some research to do based upon some information that would like to make a motion that we table the decision-making portion of this until next month. Is there a motion and support? All those in favor of tabling next month, say aye. Opposed? Okay, so we will continue our decision-making process next month. I hate to get convenience to you, but I think that that's the best way to reach a good decision.
Make your community proud.